Welcome to Epida Studio. My name is Elizabeth, and today we're going to be making a double sawtooth star. So this block has a lot of pieces in it, but it's not difficult, and you can see it's a sawtooth star, but in the middle is another sawtooth star, a smaller one. This is a fun and easy star block to do. Now this is the 8th block in the Twinkle Sampler Quilt. So you can get the pattern below, and there's even a quilt along that you can join for that. And so if you're doing that pattern, the outer sawtooth star is in your fabric 1 and the inner star is in your fabric 2. To make this block, you're going to need a 3.5-inch square of fabric 2, and this is going to be for the small square in the middle. Then you're going to need 4 flying geese units that are 2 inches by 3.5 inches. So this is a small, more unusual size for flying geese units. And because you need 4, I would recommend doing the 4 at a time method, but you might prefer to do the easiest ever method just because they're small, and that will help with the accuracy. So you can check out both methods below and figure out which one you're going to want to use for that. But if you struggle with accuracy, use the easiest ever method. If not, the 4 at a time will still work for this. You just have to be careful with your cutting and your seam allowances. You'll also need 4 2-inch squares of background fabric. Now I know often in quilts the background fabric is light and your feature fabrics are medium and dark, but in this case I'm using a dark background fabric and light and medium feature fabrics. So you can switch it up whichever way you want. Just be creative with it. It's just easier to see your design if there's contrast between light and dark or in color value. You're also going to need some 3.5 by 6.5 flying geese units. You're going to need 4 of these, and they are made with your fabric 1. So this is going to be the fabric that is in the bigger sawtooth star around the outside. So 4 of those, and you're going to need 4 3.5-inch squares of background fabric. So this is a lot of pieces, but let's go lay them out and see how they're going to go together. So to lay them out, we're going to start with this small sawtooth star that goes in the middle. So the 3.5-inch square of color goes there, and then the flying geese go around it at north, south, east, and west. So you can see our nice star there. And then the small background squares go in the corners. Then the larger flying geese units go around that. And then we end up with the larger squares in the corner. Now some people, when they're laying this out, they will look at that and they will panic and they'll say, oh no, this is so much wider than this. It's not going to fit. I need to make them smaller. Don't panic. That's because these seam allowances aren't in. Once these are sewn together, it will come down to be the same size. So don't worry about that, just trust that. So to assemble this, we're going to put the outer pieces aside for right now, and we're just going to do this one first. And when you look at the inner sawtooth star, if you've done a sawtooth star, you'll know this just goes together like a 9-patch. There's 3 pieces across, 3 pieces down. So we're going to join them into 3 rows and then join the rows together. So I'm going to start off by laying these over, and then I will take them to the sewing machine and stitch this seam on this side. So when we're stitching, we need to have a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And because these pieces are smaller and there are more seams, we need more accuracy. The more seams that there are in a block, the more that a difference from 1/4 inch will be multiplied throughout the block, and it'll make a bigger difference in the finished thing. So I've checked my 1/4 inch seam ahead of time, and I have this little tab here just to help me out. So now we have these, we're going to press them and press toward the piece that is just the square fabric away from the flying geese unit. And I would do this even if the background was a lighter color. I would still press in that direction. And the same with this one. We're going to press away from the flying geese. And same with this one. And I do that for 2 reasons. First of all, is because then that doesn't have this seam with all the bulk folded back on itself. It eliminates some of the bulk, but that also means this one goes in this direction and this one goes in this direction. So later when we join them, that will help them nest together nicely and it'll make it easier to sew them together. So now we're going to add this piece onto the edge and then come back for another press. So the 3rd pieces are added on. We're just going to press those the same way, pressing toward the square fabric away from the flying geese. And now we're going to add the rows together. So you can see when we have that at both sides, the seams just nest together nicely. So if you want to use pins to hold that, you're welcome to use pins, but usually I can just hold it with my fingers as I'm stitching because they nest together like that. On this piece, we're also going to press with the middle of the Sawtooth Star up. Now we're just going to add on this 3rd piece and then we're done the center star. So here we have this small Sawtooth Star done for the middle of the block. So now we're just going to add the flying geese and the corner units to make the larger block. And see how now that's just the right size. And you can also notice, just like the other Sawtooth Star, now it's turned into a 9 patch. There's 3 across, 3 down. So we're going to join these into rows and then join the rows together, just like we did with this middle block. So now I have the 3 rows stitched, so we're going to join them together. But one thing that's different with these 3 compared to the inner star is in this case, I press the seams out toward the flying geese unit and these seams in toward the flying geese. And the reason why I did that is because in this seam, this side of the flying geese has 1 seam and this one has 2 seams. And so I just wanted to have the 1 seam pressed instead of the 2 seams. Another alternative here would be to press the seam open. That would be another thing, because I'm just trying to avoid all the bulk of having that many things folded over. That would be a lot of bulk and it might leave a lump in your quilt. So think about your pressing. You're not obligated to always press to the dark side. So in this case, I press this way. And so now we'll just join that up. You can see our pieces matched together. We'll just join the top and the bottom and a final press. So just finish pressing that seam. Give the block a final press. There it is. Here's our double Sawtooth Star quilt block. This is a great block to use either in a quilt by itself or as part of the Twinkle Sampler Quilt. If you want more information about this or other ideas, tutorials, or patterns, check out epidastudio.com.